I was just commiserating with someone about a former coworker of mine from one of my old mainstream newsrooms posting yet again about the dangers of social media and the need for increased lockdowns on information. And once again, I was sitting here wondering if I'm the person that's just nuts and missing something here, because I keep saying this is going to take us to a not so good place where only corporate media voices and those who talk about reporting the facts from the perspective of the safe, acceptable, sort of mainline ideological perspective, which often is from a powerful worldview, that we're only going to be left with that, and the independents are going to be gone in this sweeping of what's labeled dangerous information, and thereby, of course, who would want to have people hoodwinked by dangerous information? So we just have to get rid of everybody. And it's often also oversimplified as if it's just a right-leaning conspiracy theory problem, whereas I've said on the channel many times that people on the progressive left or the establishment critic left are equally concerned, because they're talking about stuff that also critiques the power structure. And just as I was about to pull my hair out about this once again, I see that Status Coup, who you see here on YouTube, they had one of their live streams at a rally taken down. Go to their About page. It says Status Coup is progressive in-field and investigative reporting that gives the microphone back to the people. Check out some of their recent videos. They have done quite a bit on the Flint water crisis, and I saw somebody tweet actually that their journalism has been instrumental to the charges that have been filed recently on that case, which makes it interesting then if you see this, that Jordan, who's a journalist for them, writes, outrageous. Now YouTube just removed Status Coup and John Farina's live stream reporting from peaceful Virginia gun rights rally because we think it, quote, violates our firearms policy. How are journalists supposed to chronicle history if YouTube and others are outlawing it? And this is a screenshot. Hi, Status Coup. We wanted to let you know our team reviewed your content and we think it violates our firearms policy. We know you may not have realized this was a violation of our policy, so we're not applying a strike to your channel. However, we have removed the following content from YouTube. Gun rights activists rally at Virginia State Capitol before Biden inauguration. We realize this may be disappointing news, but it's our job to make sure that YouTube is a safe place for all. If you think we've made a mistake, you can appeal this decision. You'll find more details below. If we go to his page, you see some big names retweeting it with, like, Ryan Grimm, this is ridiculous. Crystal Ball, this is disturbing. And as somebody who used to work in mainstream media, I actually want to preserve the voices of independent journalists, because even if you're somebody who's working in the corporate media structure still, and you think you can do good journalism there, which I believe as a local news reporter, I was able to do some pretty good journalism about a lot of endangered species, for instance, that nobody else was covering. And so you can do good journalism. That said, there's a lot you cannot do in corporate news that independent journalists are able to do. They can stay on top of a topic day in and day out in a way that many of us in corporate news are not allowed to, because our bosses are fatigued by those topics quickly, or we don't have the time because we have deadlines that are just a couple hours away and we can't go in depth on stuff because we have to keep things in 90 seconds or less, or a certain amount of words or less, or whatever it is. And they have a lot more editorial freedom. They have quite a bit more bandwidth when it comes to just the opportunities and the ability to talk for 90 minutes if they want versus 90 seconds. And so there's an extremely valuable and really irreplaceable need for independent voices, journalists, to be heard, which is, again, brings me back to my original frustration with why mainstream journalists don't see the danger of where this is headed, even if they're going to continue maintaining their airwaves. Like, even if, say, NBC gets kicked off YouTube, which I do not believe will ever happen, but just say it did. They still have NBC, right? They still have the TV and they have their websites and stuff. But independent journalists are relying on these platforms, and there's a need for their voices to be heard. Just like Jeremy Lee Quinn, who I just did my last video about. One of the things he was talking about was, do you really think we're safer if people are underground, going to encrypted apps, for instance, and talking sort of out of the sight of people like himself who were keeping tabs on some of these events and were able to know what was coming down the pipeline because they were seeing this. Now, we can argue all day long, like, what you should or shouldn't be able to plan or plot or talk about when it comes to potentially dangerous situations. But he makes a fair point that if you think you're just by virtue necessarily safer if somebody leaves a platform and goes to an encrypted app, for instance, that, you know, there's definitely questions about that actually being the case. But this isn't even about that. This is just being able to document what is going on right now leading up to the inauguration, for instance, in this case, and what they're calling a peaceful rally. So it's not even like they're showing violent imagery or anything. And I'll just end on this. This is a retweet, which says, if big tech censors get to decide what information you're allowed to consume, then you'll only ever see information that supports their business models and ideologies. If indie journalism is suppressed, then corporate media propaganda will be the only journalism. And maybe that's why some of my peers don't seem to be all that concerned about this move and this trend, because what does it matter to them? They're still going to have the ability to tell people what they think is going on, and frankly, I guess don't necessarily see at least the value of these other voices that are out there, which I have really appreciated because they inform our ability to do our job in the corporate structure because they can see things we can't necessarily. So even if you still believe like your job is going to be okay, we should care about this. We should care about this because this helps everybody be better journalists. More voices help everybody be better journalists. I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time.